I didn't know why he was sitting down in the aisle and looking at me. My first reaction was to look away, back to the screen.
Your first reaction? My first reaction was to get the hell out of there. Sup? So? Right. Hey, that's Marcus Cinemas. Wait a minute. How you gonna put Marcus Cinemas in a club video? That's crazy.
I'm a former movie theater employee. The one that I worked at I would describe as very typical. It was near a shopping center about 10 minutes away from where I lived. At the time, I was a high school senior and 18 years old. One night, I was working there until 11 p.m. I believe it was a weekend, and I know that it had been pretty busy. As it got to be a little bit later at night, things got quieter. I'm not sure exactly what time it was, but I know that one of the theaters ended its last movie for the night. I was sent to go and clean it about 30 minutes after the movie ended. The theater wasn't all that big, so it probably wouldn't take me too long. Usually, there was some trash left behind, and popcorn on the floor and things like that. When I entered the empty theater, I started cleaning up, first closer to the screen. It was a little messier than I thought it would be. I worked my way up, and probably about 10 minutes later, I was looking down at the floor and cleaning, when suddenly, something hit the ground right in front of me. I saw that it was a cup that appeared to be empty. I had no idea where it had come from. I looked up towards the top of the theater. When I did, I saw nothing. But I knew that somebody else had to be in there to throw that at me. I called out, asking who was there, but got nothing in response. Then I started to walk up an aisle towards the top of the theater. When I made it about halfway up, I saw a man suddenly stand up and appear from behind the second to last row.
The hell?
He had a strange-looking beard and long hair. Before I had a chance to say anything, I saw him wind up and throw something at me again. I ducked, and what appeared to be an almost empty water bottle flew past my head. I stood up and asked the guy what he was doing. I kind of thought that he was joking around at first. He was standing up and facing me, but still didn't say anything. I saw that based on the seemingly angry look on his face, he was not joking around. I told him that we were closing soon and I needed to clean, so he had to go. The man's response to this was to start to take a few steps closer to me. Then, without saying anything, he began running towards me at full speed. I knew nothing else but to run away from the guy. I sprinted down the stairs and then out of the theater back.
Nah. It's too late to run now. I would have been left. But because you with that caught shit, you should have waited for him to come to you, pause, right, grabbed him, and then threw him down the stairs, down the steps. What's the difference? Stairs and steps, the same thing, right? All right.
Into the hallway. When I got out there, I noticed that the guy didn't leave the theater. He was still inside. This would pose a problem with me being able to clean it. I walked down the hallway back towards the front until I found a coworker. I found a guy named Cal who was one of my coworkers, and after I told him about the guy, we decided to go back. I felt like it would be easier for the two of us to get the guy to leave than just one. If he still refused, then we would probably have to call the police on him. We both entered the theater, but didn't go in very far. We remained just a few feet away from the door in case the guy tried anything. We couldn't see anything at all, but I was pretty sure that the guy was still in there. We yelled out that he had to go now, and if he didn't leave, we would have to call the police. At first, it was just silence. Then, suddenly, we heard a noise. It was coming from above us, and I looked up. The railing from the stairs of the aisle was above us and directly to the left. I saw the guy for a second, and a bunch of popcorn falling down on us like snow. He had dumped it over the rails right onto us. We both left the theater after that, and then called the police. We waited by the entrance for the next 10 minutes or so, and the guy didn't leave. When the police got there, we told them where the guy was. It took them a while, but eventually they were able to get him to leave the theater. I'm not sure what his problem was. The guy clearly had some issues. I'm just glad that he didn't actually cause any harm to the theater or employees. Later on, I found out that he never bought a ticket to a movie and had snuck in towards the end of a film. I guess
security ass!
He in there towards the back, and when the movie was over, continued to stay in until I went in to clean. I worked at the theater for a few months after that, before quitting.
My ass.
This happened several months ago. I went to a movie with my best friend Caroline. We went on a pretty quiet night at the theater. The movie that we were seeing had been out for a little while, so not that many people were there. We got there when the previews were still going on, and there were quite a few other seats, with maybe 10 other people there at most. We sat kind of towards the back, a little on the right side, and were not that close to anybody else. After like the second preview, Caroline said that she had to use the restroom and got up. She was hoping to be back by the time the movie started. I stayed there in my seat and kept watching the previews. Not long at all after Caroline left though, I saw a man walk up to me. I'm not really sure where he came from because I was focusing on the screen. He might have just entered the theater or maybe was already in there sitting somewhere. I didn't know. All I know is he walked right up to me and said hi, and then sat down in Caroline's seat. I didn't know who the guy was. He was sort of tall and looked to be a little bit...
I'm sorry. How did you miss the guy the whole time until he was right next to you? Club that.
Older than me. When he sat down, I told him that he was in my friend's seat. He looked at me and said that he had purchased it. In this movie theater, you had to buy the exact seat, and you couldn't just sit wherever you wanted.
Oh my God. I understand if the movie theater was somewhat packed. I've been in theaters like that, where you have like assigned seats. You know? But ain't nobody in this mother clucker. Are you dead ass? That's the cluckiest shit I probably ever heard. You can literally sit anywhere else. Are you? Nah.
I took out my phone and showed him that I had bought both my seat and the one that he was now sitting in. I was also pretty sure that the man knew this wasn't his seat. When I showed it to him, he acted all confused. He was like, "Oh, I guess I misread the seating chart." I told him my friend would be back any minute, so he would have to go to his actual seat now. The man said that he would just sit there and keep me company until she returned.
I'm good. Hey, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, nigga. Club. Always have some oil on you. A bottle of oil on you at all times. Club. If he didn't want to get up, I would have got up. One of us gonna get up.
He was kind of creeping me out a little bit, and I didn't like this. I told him I didn't think my friend would like that. He ignored this and asked me if I lived around there. I really wasn't interested in this guy at all. I gave him a basic response, saying, sort of. Thankfully, just then, I saw Caroline walking up the aisle over to us. As she got closer, I saw the confused look on her face when she saw the man in her seat. I told the guy that this was my friend and pointed at Caroline walking over. The man did not get up and move, though. Caroline got to the seat and asked the man what was going on. This is when he finally got up. The man stood up and then said bye to me. Caroline and I watched him go down the aisle to the other side, and then he sat down on the end. She asked me who he was and why he was sitting next to me. I told her what had happened. We whispered to each other a little bit about it, and then I saw the man looking over. The theater was pretty dark though, so it wasn't very clear. I tried my best to forget about it and just enjoy the movie.
How the fuck do you forget about something like that? You don't. And why would you try to forget about it?
Soon it started. Things went well for the most part after that. The movie was pretty long, and once I really got into it, I ended up forgetting about the man.
Nah.
But probably like an hour and something into the movie, it was kind of a slow part, and I really had to use the restroom. I got up without giving it much thought, and then walked to the aisle and down the stairs. When I was doing that, I saw somebody else out of the corner of my eye getting up. I didn't even realize that it was the same man from earlier though. When I got outside of the theater and was in the hallway, I started walking over to the restroom and saw the guy leaving the theater as well. When I did, I got a bad feeling about it. I walked to the restrooms and went inside. When I left, I saw the man standing around, kind of outside of the hallway in the main lobby where you can buy food and stuff. I hurried back into the theater and to my seat. Not long after making it back though, the man was back in the theater as well. He walked past us over to his seat. I was kind of worried, but tried to forget about things again. The movie went on for a while longer and then ended. When it did, Caroline and I left the theater pretty quickly. We walked back out into the hallway and then the lobby. It was then that I looked back behind us to see where the man was. A decent number of other people were around now, but I saw him. He was walking towards us, but a pretty far ways back, maybe almost 100 feet. Caroline and I hurried out of the theater and into the parking lot. We just about ran for my car and then got inside and drove away. When we did, Caroline saw the man, and I looked over to see him walking towards the car and then start to get inside. After leaving the theater, I turned as soon as possible and quickly went onto the highway. I don't know if the man had intentions to follow us or not, but I wanted to be safe in case he did. Luckily, he would not have been able to know where we went. Both of us made it back and have not seen the guy since that night. I've been back to the theater a couple of times since. I'm hoping that nothing like that happens again.
It most likely will, because y'all both cluck asses. That's crazy. How you gonna leave her in the movie theater by herself? That's also crazy.
I love movies and watch them all the time. Many times I go to movies in theaters. In fact, I go so much that I often go by myself. When friends can go with me, I go with them. But I see movies in theaters at least 2 times a week, I would say.
I used to do that. When I first started my channel, my main channel, I used to do like movie reviews. And sometimes I would go to the movie theater by myself. It's a little awkward, but I did it. I can understand where you're coming from. It's a little awkward.
I enjoy going alone, and usually I like to sit by myself in one of the far back rows. The story I'm about to tell you happened not that long ago. I went to my local movie theater to see the Ant-Man movie.
Hey.
When I got inside the theater, it was sort of busy, but not too bad. The room Ant-Man was showing in was not very crowded, and I sat in the right before last row from the back. In fact, after sitting down, I only noticed a few other people inside. I watched the previews, and then the movie started. About an hour into the film, I had a weird feeling. I kind of felt like I was being watched or something. It was very strange, because I was unaware of anybody else sitting in the back row, the only row that was behind me. And the other people scattered around the theater were all in front of me and certainly not even looking in my direction. I looked behind me to reassure myself that nobody was there. But when I did, I realized that I was wrong. There was in fact a person there, and it was a man who I hadn't noticed before. He was directly behind me and not even in his seat.
Wow.
He was on the ground in front of his seat, sitting on the floor and looking right at me.
Oh my God.
I was very confused. I didn't know why he was sitting down in the aisle and looking at me. My first reaction was to look away, back to the screen.
Your first reaction? My first reaction was to get the hell out of there.
I figured that the man would realize whatever he was doing was weird, and that I saw him, and then he would stop. I looked back, and the guy was still there. I asked him what he was doing. The guy just looked away and ignored me. I shook my head, and then looked back to the screen, but I could tell that the guy was still sitting right behind me. I got up and moved to the far other end of the aisle and sat down there. I didn't really care exactly where I sat. I just wanted to be left alone and not have this guy breathing down my neck. I looked over to the guy a couple of times. He was still sitting on the floor, but watching the movie. I couldn't even begin to guess what his deal was. But about another 10 minutes went by, and then I heard a little movement behind me. I looked over, and the guy was in a seat that was closer to me. He was in the last row behind me and like 3 seats down, much closer than before. I rolled my eyes. Then, maybe 5 minutes later, I felt him get right behind me again as he did before. At that point, I turned around, stood up, and asked him,
"You felt him?" That was a poor choice of words. Them words were so, you felt him? That was so sus.
He was doing. The guy moved back and sat down in the seat, and then he said he was just trying to watch the movie.
My ass.
I was so annoyed that I just got up and left. I walked directly out of the theater, even though the movie wasn't over yet. The guy had ruined the experience for me. Sure, I could have stayed and argued with him, or I could have complained to an employee, but I didn't feel like doing those things. It wasn't that big of a deal to me, because I knew I would be in the theater again soon. I went to so many movies, and that was the first time that I had a really bad experience. I figured that it was just a freak thing and wouldn't happen again. The next couple of times that I went to a movie there, it went well. I didn't see the guy, and I saw a couple of different films. Then I was back in the theater again, probably about 2 weeks after the incident. I was expecting it to be another very typical and good night at the movies. I was by myself and seeing a movie called Operation Fortune. There were kind of a lot of people at this movie, and I once again sat in the back. This time, though, I was sitting in the very last row of seats. Some other people were in that row, but on the other side. I remember that when the movie ended, I saw some of the other people start to stand up and leave. I was about to do so as well, when I saw the man who had been behind me before. He was standing by the exit, and I was not going to leave until he did. I didn't want to run into him again. I stayed where I was and waited for him, and a bunch of other people left. However, a few minutes went by, and most of the people were gone from the theater, but the guy remained there, just kind of standing by the exit. I realized that possibly he knew that I was here, and he was waiting for me. At first, this seemed like a crazy thought, but as more time went by and the guy stayed there, it seemed like more and more of a possibility. I hadn't noticed him before though, and didn't know how he would know that I was in here. Soon, it was just me and him in the theater. I got up and started to walk over, but then stopped. I had a really bad feeling about it and thought better of it. After a few seconds, the guy started walking up the stairs in the aisle, getting closer to me. I started moving away to the other end of the aisle. Soon, the guy made it up the stairs to the back row where I was. I jumped over some seats and ran to the other aisle of stairs going down. I ran down them as fast as I could and saw the guy was running after me. When I got back down, finally, I ran to the exit and out the door. When I was back in the hallway, I ran for the nearest exit and left the theater. By that time, I made it outside and the man was no longer following me. I'm not sure exactly at what point he stopped, but I still went home quickly. Since that experience, I haven't been back there. It's been months, and I'm thinking about going back to that theater. I've been to a couple of others, but they're farther away. I'm not sure who the guy is, or if he had seen me at the theater before, and that's why he was messing with me. Hopefully, I just don't see him again.
And you will. Because you got cluck tendencies. I said that right?
I used to work at a movie theater for a few months when I was younger. This was several years ago now, but I sometimes still think about the crazy experiences that I had. My coworkers were fun and interesting, but even more so was the customers. Our theater would get pretty busy sometimes. Most of the people were nice, but one time I had an experience that was truly a horror story. I was working an evening shift. I don't remember exactly what time I started or got off, but it was probably something like 4 to 10. Everything was going fine until probably like 8 p.m. or so. Things were kind of busy, and there was a decent number of people standing around. A bit of a line formed at the concessions where I was working. We usually had 2 lines when things were busy, and that's what we had on this night. I was at one line, and my coworker Amanda was at the other. I served a few people, and then a guy got to the front of my line. He was a bigger dude, short blonde hair and glasses. He asked for a large popcorn and a water cup. I told him the price, and when I did, he didn't believe me. Now, most people know that at movie theaters, the food is overpriced. I don't like it, but it's not my choice. There's a lot of people that try to sneak food into the movie theaters as well. When I worked there were multiple times that I saw people bring stuff in. They were not supposed to, but I wasn't going to stop them. It's just the way it is. Well, this guy objected to the price. He told me that there was no way popcorn should cost that much. I was already scooping the popcorn and filling it for the guy. I said back to him that I knew it was a lot, but that's just how things are. At first, I thought he might have been joking or just complaining for the sake of it. Then he was like, "I'm not paying that." I finished getting his popcorn and put it on the counter. I said, "So, you don't want this anymore?" The guy told me to give him the popcorn, but he wasn't going to pay for it.
Shit. Well, okay. It's a movie theater. I don't, what? Here you go, player. Next. It's not that serious.
Surely he must have been joking, but apparently he wasn't. I laughed a little, but saw that the guy did not have a joking look on his face at all. In fact, he seemed angry. I told the man the smaller sizes of popcorn were cheaper if he wanted that. He looked up at the sign and read them. Then he told me that they were all a scam. Meanwhile, there was a line forming of people behind him that were waiting. He continued to look at the menu and said that everything on it was a scam. He started reading the prices of everything out loud. The more he read, the louder his voice became. Some of the other people standing around started to take notice. The guy then raised his hands as if to make an announcement and said, "This place is the biggest scam ever." Some people started to laugh, and others looked like they wanted him to stop. I told the guy that if he didn't want the popcorn, he should leave, because a lot of people were waiting behind him. He reached forward, grabbed the popcorn, which was completely full, and then threw it right in my face. A bunch of popcorn went flying past my head. Some of it hit me, but not that much. I couldn't believe it. Not all the popcorn spilled out though, probably only about half of it. Then, the man sprayed the remaining popcorn around, hitting a bunch of people standing around him. He then poured the rest over his head as if to give himself a shower. He then slammed the container on the ground and pushed over a little stand that was holding small bags of chips. They all fell to the ground. And after that, he finally walked off down the hallway towards the theaters. Everyone was...
Towards the theater? I would have thought he would have did all that and then left. How you gonna do all that and still try to watch the movie? Nah, that's not how that works.
Standing there, stunned. A few people laughed a little bit, and then a guy came over and picked up the chips off the ground. Finally, things resumed back to normal. Another employee came over and swept up the popcorn, and I didn't see the guy for the rest of the night. I think I got off before whatever movie he was at finished. Looking back, sometimes I think I should have just given him the popcorn for free to avoid all the trouble. But I don't regret not doing it. The man was a jerk and didn't deserve it. That's my biggest movie theater horror story.
Jesus Christ. It's a movie theater. It's not that serious. It's never that serious.
A few years ago, I went to the movie theater to see Uncharted with my friend.
Was it good?
I don't remember why, but we drove separately to the movie theater. We met each other there and then went into the theater. The movie theater was probably less than 10 minutes away from where I lived. It was in an area of town with some other stores and stuff, and it was the most popular movie theater in the city. I arrived that night and met with my friend for the movie. We went inside the theater, and it was pretty busy that night. We watched the movie, and when it was over, left. My friend and I said bye to each other and then went our separate ways. He was parked on the other side of the parking lot, which was pretty busy. I was parked kind of in the back middle. I walked to my vehicle, and when I got to it, I saw that there was this car parked next to me with the engine running. It was an SUV, and I walked around it towards my driver's door. Out of nowhere, this guy appeared from around the corner of the SUV in front of it and blocked my way of getting into my car. He looked to be pretty young, about maybe 19 or 20. The way he approached me out of nowhere took me by surprise, and he walked over to me aggressively. But when he got right up within a couple of feet of me, he said that his car was having some problems. He pointed to the SUV that was parked next to me really close. In fact, it was parked slightly over the line. The kid asked me if I could help him. I told him no. I didn't know anything about cars, and I pointed out...
I told him tough! That's exactly what I said. Tough. You ever see somebody in a club situation and you know how to fix the situation, but they ask you for help and you just be like, nah, I'm good.
It seemed to be running. His engine was running, and I didn't know what exactly the problem could be. The guy said that he didn't know what was wrong either and asked me for my help. Honestly, it just seemed suspicious. But as he was talking to me, I looked next to me at my car. Through the window, I saw somebody was right on the other side of it. They were kind of crouched down and up against my car. I was really weirded out by this. The guy was kind of in front of his car now. I took out the key to my car and put it in the keyhole at my driver's door. I was afraid to hit the unlock on the electronic button because the guy at my car would probably go inside of it. I unlocked my car manually as fast as possible. When it unlocked, I quickly got inside and then locked the door behind me. The guy that was in front of the SUV came over and went right up to my window. Meanwhile, the other guy backed off a bit and kind of went behind my car. I started backing up, and both guys came closer to my car. The guy at my front window knocked on it. I ignored them and kept backing out. Then I just drove away. I went home after that and felt like I escaped some sort of a setup. I don't know exactly what those guys were doing, but I don't think it was anything good.
It's, I don't know what's more of a job. I don't know what's more, like, if you had to risk your life or if you had to protect yourself over a job, between a movie theater, it's a movie theater though. Like, it's just, I feel like the turnaround rate is really high. I mean, let me know what y'all would have done in that situation. Like, the guy, he talking crazy, he acting crazy, he doing crazy shit, right? And he just starts complaining. Do you just give him the popcorn, or do you hold your ground and be like, sir, no, you can't have this popcorn? Like, like what? It's popcorn. Like, not granted. If you came in here and tried to get one of these off of me, best believe we fighting to the death. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my fam.